At this time, I would like to welcome Dana Little and Ofilio to the stage. They are going to talk with you about the difficulties and challenges and experiences of dealing with re-engaging in clinical trials. And then afterwards, we'll have you can have questions. Welcome.
How do we vote? Oh, I see it. Okay. Good morning. My name is Dana. I work for the UC Davis Cancer Care Network in Sacramento. We are part of the UC Davis Health program. We are responsible for fostering partnerships with the network sites that are affiliated with UC Davis. The CCN has relationships with these sites that I have listed here, depending on what those sites' needs are. Oops. How do I back it up? Okay, depending on what those sites' needs are, determines what our relationship is with them, as well as the financial relationships between the sites. So I've listed out the sites that we have relationships with here. UC Davis, in terms of Marysville, or the Rideout Cancer Center in Marysville, they are an integrated component affiliated with our labs. The Chico Cancer Center involved in this talk at the time of the fire was not part of the network, but it is now part. It's an integrated component. And AIS in Bakersfield is an affiliate site. Barton is not part of our LAPS grant. The Gene Upshaw Memorial Tahoe Forest Cancer Center is an affiliate, and Merced is an integrated component. At this point, Ridgecrest is not conducting clinical research. Okay. Now it won't go forward. It's not advancing. The slides aren't advancing. Yep, I did it. Okay, so the town of Paradise, which is the topic today, is located 85 miles north of Sacramento in the Sierra foothills. The foothills are a ridge that with elevations ranging from 2,000 to 2,800 feet above sea level. It is the second largest city in Butte County, and according to the 2010 census, its population was 26,800 people. It was home to a 100-bed Adventist Health Feather River Cancer Center, as well as the hospital, and it was the largest employer in the area at the time. 2 days prior to the fire, I had had a discussion with the director of the cancer center in Marysville, who had informed me that they were looking at having building a relationship with the two cancer centers in order to increase clinical trials accrual and possibly to be able to share services between the two sites. Little did I know at that time that everything was getting ready to change. Okay. Now it won't advance again. Oh, there we go. So, the Camp Fire of 2018 was the deadliest and most destructive wildfire in California history that started on November 8th, 2018. It took 17 days to get the fire under control. At the time of the fire that morning, the director that I was just talking about had left her home in Paradise and was making her drive to Marysville when she noticed that the sky was really, really dark, and she decided to turn around. She went back. Okay, the timer's working. Okay, so anyway, she went back home. She rescued her dogs. She left, and 15 minutes after she left her home exploded. The fire caused at least 86 civilian fatalities. It covered an area of 153,000 acres and destroyed 18,804 structures. The total damage was $16.5 billion, and a recent survey reported that there was a 90% loss in the area. At the time of the fire, the Feather River Cancer Center was not part of our grant, nor were they any part of the Cancer Care Network. They did have a relationship with another institution. They were conducting 17 clinical trials with IRB approval or CIRB approval. They had 13 trials with 32 participants actively enrolled. 5 participants were active on therapeutic studies, 2 therapeutic, and 3 of them were observational. 27 of the enrolled participants were in follow-up only, and 1 participant had transferred to another facility outside the state due to the fire. Shortly after the fire, the IRB as well as the hospital disbanded due to the damage and left the program without human subject protection oversight and forcing them to suspend clinical trial enrollment. At the time, the clinical research coordinator had the foresight to reach out to OHRP and get guidance on what to do with the patients who were on trial. OHRP provided her a guidance that advised her on what to do and allowed her to, or instructed her to quickly identify another IRB of record in order to continue conducting research, but she was authorized to continue doing the follow-up on the patients that were on trial until they were able to find an IRB. At the time, because of the damage to the cancer center, they decided to relocate to the city of Chico, which is 15 miles west of Paradise and 87 miles north of Sacramento. Between the time of the fire and April 9th of 2019, more than 100 cancer patients from Adventist Health, Feather River, received their care at their sister site in Marysville. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Ofilio.
Thank you. My name is Ofilio Vigil, and I handle regulatory affairs for the Cancer Care Network. And I'll just tell you a bit more about what we had to deal with after this disaster. As you can imagine, a lot of the patients relocated to surrounding areas after the fire, in particularly the city of Chico. And when we started talking about how to re-engage this population and this cancer center in clinical trials, what we wanted to arrive at was a plan that would provide patients an opportunity to continue participating in trials with minimal disruption to their lives. So what we had in mind was not requiring them to have long drives or change physicians. We reached out to NCTN quality assurance managers, and in talks, we arrived at a plan of transferring most of those enrolled patients with their consent to our sister site in Marysville, which was south, if you remember, south of the town of Paradise. And after that transfer, research staff that we had already in place in the town of Marysville would collect and submit data for participants in follow-up while they continue receiving their care from their physician, from the physician that they knew and that had relocated to the city of Chico. Patients were informed of this plan via a Dear Patient letter. We started a mail campaign. We secured approval of this from the NCI, CIRB, and our local IRB. We thought that given the tremendous and mass relocation of Paradise residents, that using a certified mailing letter was the most effective approach. Many of these folks had provided a forwarding address, and so we thought reaching out to them via mail would be the best way to go. Prior to the start of this mail campaign, we had reached an IRB authorization agreement between UC Davis and the site in Chico. This is a process that was initiated in April of 2019 and was finalized in May 22nd, 2019. As Dana alluded to, the UC Davis Comprehensive Cancer Center had reached out about the possibility of adding the site in Chico as a LAPS integrated component. And as some of you may know, this is a process that typically takes place either in January or August for consideration, but due to the circumstances, the rare circumstances, an exception was made, and we initiated this process in May of this year, and we got final notification that Chico was officially an integrated component of the UC Davis Comprehensive Cancer Center LAPS grant. Now, I just wanted to tell you a bit about the results of this mail campaign. We mailed out quite a few letters, and what we got back was 43% of those participants that received that letter agreed to be followed by our sister site in Marysville. 11% of those declined the plan, and 46% have not responded. So there's a huge number of these participants that we've yet to reach. What we're planning to do now that we've secured regulatory approval is to reach out to them via phone to see if we can get in contact with them. We are in the process of recruiting a permanent full-time clinical research coordinator for that site in Chico. And our plan is to, for those participants that desire to transfer them back to their original site that has relocated to Chico. As you can imagine, we've learned quite a bit from this experience. It's something rare, something that we had not prepared for, and that sort of learning process has impacted other units within UC Davis. For example, the UC Davis IRB plans to develop policies which address the conduct of research in the event of a natural disaster, and we've been invited to share our experience at settings like this and have submitted a few abstracts for various organizations like SOCRA and Primer. And internally, the Cancer Care Network is developing policies regarding increasing the use of electronic records. Lastly, we just wanted to thank, first of all, Kevin Fullerton, who's a nurse and was the manager of the Adventist Health Cancer Care Clinic in Paradise and Chico, and him and actually his wife are the ones that provided a lot of these photos that, as you saw, many of them were, he stayed back at the hospital, working with staff there to triage patients. I think there was a picture that went through of a burned car. That was his car that he had left in the parking lot as he was working. And there's a couple of photos of his wife as she was escaping successfully the town of Paradise. But he's been instrumental and really great support to our work. Also wanted to thank the UC Davis Comprehensive Cancer Center investigators that chose to continue research at this site by volunteering to be principal investigators of record. For example, Doctors Joseph Toscano, Megan Daly, Shyam Rao, and Helen Chu. And lastly, the quality assurance managers that we mentioned that were really super supportive and helped us sort of develop this plan. And they include Elaine Armstrong here at SWOG, Mimi Passarello at NRG Oncology, Joshua Shope at ECOG Akron, and Leslie Kelly at Alliance for clinical trials. And that's all we have. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for us? I'm sorry.
How did you obtain the forward address for the patients?
Is the question, how did we get the address for the patients? We worked with the investigator from the Feather River Hospital, who is now at Chico, and were able to get the patients' names and addresses in order to send out the mailers, or the addresses that we believed that the ones that were on file prior to the fire.
How did you manage patients' investigational agent and for those patients that were on treatment?
So, how do I say this? Luckily, there were only 2 patients receiving active drug at the time, or active agents at the time. So based on the guidance that was provided from OHRP, they were able to continue obtaining drug. It was distributed in a 3-month increment, so it wasn't like we were ordering drug all the time. And so we were very strategic when we were in the process of transferring the patients over to Marysville. We identified when their next dose would be dispensed, and then as soon as that dose was dispensed, then we transitioned them over to Marysville. So it was all kind of done behind the scenes, but again, Elaine and Mimi were the 2 that really provided us a lot of guidance as we were figuring it out. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.